A lot just happened in the past minute. I took my sweatshirt off, I knocked you over, I decided my back hurt too bad just on the floor, I went and got a cushion, I tried to sit on it, I tried to change the angle again, and then my camera wouldn't refocus, and I just filmed myself talking about like 2 books and I wasn't in focus, so I'm sweating now, but I'm ready to get started. Like I was saying, before I rank the books, I want to talk about the 3 books that I was absolutely racing against time to try to finish before September ended, because I have some recommendations videos coming up in October that these books seem like they would really fit into some categories I'm thinking of, but unfortunately I haven't finished them yet. The first one is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. If you've been watching my videos for a while, I did do a completely dedicated reading vlog to this book like last summer, I think, because it was my highest anticipated release for 2020, but unfortunately I did not finish this book. I liked it, but I don't know, I just kept putting it down for whatever reason, and now I actually started rereading it. I thrifted this copy recently, and I've been reading it on my e-reader from the library, and I'm really enjoying it this time around. It's very ghosty. We have 2 different perspectives going on, 2 different timelines, and it's about a haunted hotel. This next one, this one is not going well at all. The Devil in Dark Water by Stuart Turton. I think I first started this book back in February, and it was not going well then. I picked back up where I left off with this one. I did not start over. This one is about a ship that may or may not be haunted, but it is just so long, you guys. I'm on page 255, and I just still feel like we're getting nowhere. I will say I really like the atmosphere of this book. I like everyone being really dirty and grungy on this ship, but it's almost a little too claustrophobic for me. We're not getting too many flashbacks. We're just getting a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different storylines all on this ship, and it is a little bit tiring with it being so long. Like, I kind of just want them to get off the ship already. Also, one of my new favorite books of all time, The Book of Accidents. I still haven't finished this yet, but this is just such a strong recommendation. It's giving me Stephen King, but it's also giving me like Stranger Things, and I know I said that in my last video, but I feel like that's a really accurate representation of everything this book just encompasses. It's a horror book, and it's following a small family in a small town. The vibes are perfect, and the part that I just hit in the book actually is taking place right at Halloween right now, so I can't wait to jump back into this one probably later tonight. Okay, let's move on to my least favorite book of the month. This might be a little bit controversial. I didn't hear a ton of things when this first came out last year, but I feel like it's made a resurgence in these past few months, kind of late summer. It's Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane, and I'm giving this book 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's almost like a soft 3. I liked so much of this book, but then when I finished it, it just didn't come together at all how I was kind of craving that ending to really blow my mind and really excite me. I do feel like right from page 1, this book had a very steady pace, and then that pace was maintained throughout the entire book. We didn't have a ton of lows, but then that also means we didn't have a ton of highs, just in my personal opinion. The tagline of this book is, "Shouldn't a dead husband stay dead?" And I don't want to tell you too much of what it's about, because there are some pretty big plot twists very early in the book, and I really didn't know any of them, so even the little twists were fun for me at the beginning. But it's basically about this wife who wakes up one day and her husband is missing, and this is super unlike him. I mean not that like it would be normal for anyone to go missing, but he's like really reliable at work. He's seemingly this great guy, and when he doesn't show up, everyone's like, where is this guy? And then she's like, I don't know, guys, I don't know where he is. Oh, but the other tagline on the front is, "There's more than one way to end a marriage." This is a debut novel. This is Darby Kane's first book, and I do feel like it reads like a first novel. I personally just didn't really care for the writing style. I think that this is a very wordy book, and this is pretty long to be a thriller, even though the words are large on the page. This copy is over 400 pages, and just for what the story was, I think it was a little bit too long, like just maybe a little bit clunky. And even though I liked the dark direction the book ended up taking, and I wanted to know what happened and like what was going on, I didn't love it. It feels very much just like an average 2.5 star book. Okay, ow, ow, ow. My back is killing me. We're about to take a field trip to the couch. I'm sorry. The next book I had to talk about is The Siren by Catherine St. John, and I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars, and I do like this book. When I give something 3 stars, it's above average. I think it's a good book, but this was kind of a little bit of a letdown to me because I had really high expectations. Number one, just from looking at the cover alone, because it's one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen, but also it was just a whole combination of things. I thought it was going to be the perfect summer read. There is an isolated setting, there is a big storm, it's all about movie stars and screenwriters and production companies, and it was just right up my alley. The book starts off with news of this new production going on where they're going out to film remotely on this island, and it's going to be called The Siren, and the movie's going to include a mix of old Hollywood people and then new stars. Right from the beginning, as a reader, you feel like you're in the know. You feel like you're getting the gossip because there's a little bit of mixed media going on. You're getting to read headlines, you're getting to read articles all about this movie and the actors and drama that happened between the actors and actresses, and it's really fun and it feels really immersive at first. But once we get to the island, we get that baseline drama, we get a feel for who is who, and you get really excited for where the story is going. We start getting these flashbacks, which at first, again, very interesting, and you're thinking, how does all of this fit together? And then for like the middle 200 pages of the book, it felt like a lot of the same. It felt a little bit repetitive. I felt like there were just large chunks of the book where we were getting some good character development, but also I don't feel like we were getting anything new to add to the story. It felt like it was building and building and building, and then it would just kind of plateau for a little bit. But I do think this had a strong ending, and I like the direction this book took. I really wasn't expecting a big plot twist or anything like that, but there was one in here and it did really get me. I just wish that it had been a little bit more captivating in the middle of the book. It took me a few months to finish, and I just wanted it to be that perfect poolside read. I am very excited to read more from Catherine St. John. I actually recently bought The Lion's Den and plan on reading it hopefully, well, I don't know. I guess that summer is kind of over. I was gonna say by the end of summer, but it's the last day of September when I'm filming this, so maybe do it as a fall read or maybe wait until next year. I don't know. Also, this is marketed as a thriller, and there are thrilling aspects towards the end of the book as everything is building to this big storm, and it's like, you know, of course the storm is building up as the drama between the characters is also building up, but I just really wanted more action again in the middle of the book. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Next is the only horror book that I read in September, and it is called No One Gets Out Alive by Adam Neville. This was such an impulse read. I actually listened to the audiobook because I had seen a few horror booktubers talk about it when I was looking up haunted house book recommendations. This is a book that I saw on almost every single list, and then the final nail in the coffin was the other day. Gabby from Gabby Reads posted a reading vlog where she actually DNF'd this book and said that there was just something in it. There was a spoilery section, but I skipped it because I knew I wanted to read the book. But she was just saying that that she was so disgusted and it just was not the type of horror that was for her. So I'm really just I wanted to read it to see what she meant, and I actually still, I'm not sure if I know what she meant by that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the spoilery part now, because I felt like this was a very straightforward horror book. And also, it has just gotten a Netflix adaptation and I've not watched it yet. I want to say it's a movie, don't quote me on it because I've not actually done my own research, but I heard someone else say that the movie is out on Netflix, so I'm hoping to watch that this weekend. It is, above all else, a haunted house story. It is about this young woman who is really, really down on her luck. She doesn't have just about any money. She has semi-recently broken up with a boyfriend, and she's been in between jobs, but she kind of has found something new that she's trying to make work. She has strained relationships with her family. So because of all of these extenuating circumstances, she does something she wouldn't typically do, and she goes and stays in this really sketchy apartment building. And the book actually has one of the strongest starts to a book maybe that I've ever read, because the book starts right in the middle of the action of this woman's first night staying at her new apartment building. So we're not getting any type of background. We just know that a woman is waking up. She's hearing screams, she's hearing cries. She thinks she hears scratching and mice running around. And I mean, it's creepy. I do not scare just about at all when I'm reading. I have a few very specific things that will make me feel paranoid, but I don't get scared when I'm reading. So I would say objectively, this is a very scary book. But again, the only time I really ever get scared is if I'm watching a movie and something is loud or something is a jump scare. That'll that'll scare me, but in terms of something getting in my mind and scaring me, it's not gonna happen for me reading a book. Usually, if you have something like a recommendation for me that you think will change that, let me know. Anyway, so after that first night, you know, she gets up, she's like, I've got to get out of here, I've got to go get my deposit back, I've got to get this money back, I've got to go live somewhere else. And so that's how the book starts, is she's trying to get her money back, she's trying to get out of there. Now, I've read a lot of reviews of people who complain that this girl like wouldn't get out of her situation, and that she's like, there's no way that she wouldn't be running for her life. But I disagree up until a certain point in the book. Most of this book, I actually felt like her choices made sense. I really felt like she didn't have anywhere else to go until possibly it's too late. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but there's a lot of real life horror going on in this book. It's not all paranormal. There are some really despicable people in this book, and there are some really horrific, realistic descriptions of violence going on. Just please check the trigger warnings before you read this book, along with any of the books I ever mentioned. Also, this is probably gonna sound like a weird note, but this book is written by a man, but it's from a first-person female's perspective. And sometimes that is so cringy to me, but I actually kind of want to say that the main character's name is Stephanie. I actually felt like I was in Stephanie's mind. I never like was getting pulled out of the piece thinking, oh my gosh, this is a woman written by a man. You know, I think that was actually really well done. But the reason that I'm not giving this anything higher than a 3.5 star rating is because it's not really the second half of the book. It's like the part 2. I listened to the audiobook again, so I don't have like a clear visual of if it was broken up into part 1 and part 2, but there is a clear pivot, I want to say about like 60 to 70% of the way through, where what you're reading changes into something else. I'm going to be super vague for, you know, no spoilers, but it is from that point on where I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, it actually would have been so good. It would have been such a good ending to end at like the part 1, just in my opinion, and possibly keep it kind of ambiguous, you know? I'm not saying if it is ambiguous or not overall, but I didn't like the second part of the book. It didn't make any sense to me, and I'm just gonna leave it at that because I don't want to give too much away. Now we're getting into the 4-star reads and higher. The next book I want to talk about is called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and it's a little bitty novella. It was not long at all. I read it on Scribd on my phone, on my e-reader, and I thought it was pretty good for what it was. One thing I'm trying to do better with is rating things for what they are. So of course, in my opinion, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara is a hard 5-star read. But when I read a little novella that is about, you know, 10% as long as what A Little Life was, then it's hard to hold those two things to the same standard. So for what this story was, I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke starts out and it feels like a creative writing assignment. It almost feels like the prompt was pick an item in your house and then write a Craigslist listing for it. And then the story kind of spins off from there. So we start out with this, I want to say it was an apple peeler or something that this girl is listing for someone to buy, and then when the story starts, we're reading the correspondence, the electronic correspondence between 2 women. So it's like, hey, who wants to buy my apple peeler? Here's the history behind it. And the other girl's like, yo, I want to buy your apple peeler. And then from there, they strike up a relationship of sorts that ends up just being so wild. This is I know I say like, oh man, that book was wild. This is one of the wildest turns I've ever seen a story take, and I still am sitting on whether or not I think it's in a good way or a bad way. I still don't know how to feel about this, but because it mixed up so many feelings inside of me, and it really evoked a visceral reaction from me while I was reading, we're going with a 4-star. Like, it definitely made me think. One of the little taglines for the book is, I'm probably messing this up, but I think it was, what have you done to deserve your eyes today? what kind of question is that? So it is so fast, so easy to read, because a lot of what you're reading is just their texts or their instant messages to each other. So it's just, you know, goes super fast, and then things just get darker and darker and weirder as we go. And it's just so weird. And I got so cracked up because on the Goodreads review that I wrote for this book recently, I got a comment because my review was something along the lines of like, this was crazy. Also, trigger warnings because there is some animal violence that happens in the book, and even though it's brief, it's kind of descriptive. And someone commented and was like, of everything that happens in this book, it's hilarious to me that you've chosen just to do the trigger warning for animal violence. So apparently that's where I draw the line. But yeah, there's just a lot of nasty stuff happening here. I feel like it just crossed so many lines that I just commend the author for going there. I love it when a book just takes a risk, and I feel like there was a huge payoff here. Next, I have Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I've been wanting to read this for such a long time. This book is about a black woman who nannies for a white family, and at the beginning of the book, the family calls their nanny kind of late one night and says, hey, something's going on, could you please take our daughter to the store really fast and just kind of walk around, keep her for a little bit, and then bring her back in a little bit. We'll give you a call when to bring her back. So, you know, this woman really has a strong bond with the young girl that she nannies, and so she doesn't even think twice. She's like, yeah, I'll come do that for you guys. So then while they're at the store, something happens where the nanny's, not intentions, but just like the whole situation is put into question by some white customers. And this book is just really interesting, and I feel like it's very timely, and I feel like there are a lot of great discussions going on in this book about race, obviously, but also about, like, it's almost satire on wokeness, you know what I mean? So there's a lot going on in this book about allyship, I guess is the best way to put it, and like what it actually means to be an ally, and also like performative activism, and really just like checking in with yourself about what are my own intentions about being an ally in situations like this. So the book is tackling those larger themes, but it's doing it through exploring a cast of pretty interesting characters. If you liked Everything I Never Told You or Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, I think you will like Such a Fun Age, not necessarily for like thematic content, but just the writing style and the way that this author writes her relationships between characters and really makes you feel like you're just sitting on the couch with them doing whatever they're doing. The only thing is, I didn't really necessarily feel like I loved anybody. I really cared deeply for Amira, but I feel like we didn't spend quite enough time with her for me to feel as connected as I could have. A lot of the reader's time is split between Amira and then Alex or Alex. I'm still not sure how to say it, but the mother in the story. We're split between them a lot of the time, and I didn't like Alex at all. And yeah, I liked how the stories came together, but I wanted more time with Amira. So that's kind of my only complaint here, but super solid read, and it's something that I think is so beautifully written and that I'm really excited to read more from Kylie Reed in the future. Okay, I've gotten to the last 2 books on this list, and they are both somewhere between 4 and 4.5 stars for me, and they're both by Alice Feeney. The first one I want to talk about, I just finished today, finished it this morning. It's Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I have had this book on my radar for so long. It's super short, number 1, and number 2, I have been hearing that this had an amazing plot twist or twists, and it has a self-proclaimed unreliable narrator. So it's a lot of things that I typically love, and it all came together and just knocked it out of the park for me. I really enjoyed this book. We start off and we learn that a woman is in a coma, and right at the beginning, let me see what this says here. Okay, here's all you need to know. My name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things you should know about me. Number 1, I'm in a coma. Number 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. Number 3, sometimes I lie. I have a little bit of a pet peeve, and it is when I'm reading a book and then the whole twist at the end is that, oh, but they were an unreliable narrator, we couldn't trust them. I kind of feel like that's such a cop-out, but I love an unreliable narrator or someone who's kind of morally gray when they are self-professed right up front at the beginning of the book, where they're like, oh, I don't know if you can trust me. Then I am totally on board with it because I feel like I'm in on something with that narrator. Does that make sense? So it's not a spoiler to say this is an unreliable person. The entire book is called Sometimes I Lie. So you're trying to figure out what is actually going on here. The book is split up into these 3 different parts. So the first one, like I said, this woman, she wakes up in a coma. She doesn't have any memory of what has happened. Well, she has a little bit of memory, but she can't put all of the pieces together yet of why she is in this hospital and why she can't like move or open her eyes, but she can hear everything that's going on. She just can't see what's going on. So that's one of the parts. And I don't mean like part 1, 2, 3. I mean, these are all alternating sections in the book, you know? So the next one is we go back in time like a week earlier to what was leading up to whatever put her in the coma. And then the third part of the book are these letters from when she was a child. I'm sorry, not letters, diary entries, where we're learning about this girl's childhood. So each different little timeline felt super distinct to me, really easy to tell them apart. Very short chapters, by the way, which made it so easy to fly through. And this is only like, I want to say like 250 pages. Yeah, like just over 250 pages. If you're looking for something short and just really easy to read, it is not perfect, okay? There are some cheesy cliche moments, but I'm so willing to overlook that if I'm having fun, and I had so much fun reading this book. And lastly, my favorite book of the month was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This was my September book of the month pick, and when I saw snow on the cover, I knew that it was gonna be my choice. I love an isolated setting, bonus points if it's snowy. This book starts off with a couple and they're traveling out to the middle of nowhere to this isolated chapel, and you find out that they're going there to celebrate their wedding anniversary. And while they're making this trip, right at the beginning, you learn 2 really important things. Number 1 is that the husband in this relationship has something called, I can't remember what the medical term is, and I just looked it up, but he has face blindness. So he's not a blind person, but he cannot recognize people by distinguishing physical, like facial features. So he can't even look at his wife and recognize her. He's had to learn like other ways to recognize her, by like smell or by her hair or her voice. He can't recognize people by their faces. The second really important thing we learn early on is that this couple, they're struggling, and not even just like struggling, there's almost some animosity going on between these 2. They are really, there's a lot of, I don't even want to call it banter. They are straight up bickering on this trip up here, and you don't know why. You want to know what's going on. Now, typically, I am not super sold on just a domestic thriller like a husband-wife situation. I kind of like neighborhood drama sometimes. I've gotten a little burned out on that recently, but I have never been one to just enjoy the husband-wife drama, but I ate this right up. So basically, once they get up to this chapel place, weird spooky things start going on, and you don't know if someone's messing with them. You don't know if this place is haunted. As you continue reading, you find out that there are some reasons that would make you believe that this place could be haunted. We kind of have like a witch prison going on. We have someone who possibly fell from a bell tower. So I mean, those are not spoiler things at all. That's something that I read from a pamphlet about this chapel. Like, it's not really part of the plot, but I'm just saying, you don't know if spooky things are going on, and you don't know if someone is messing with them. So we're getting these alternating chapters told from the perspective of the husband, of the wife, and then also a third party that I'm not going to tell you because the book doesn't really start out with all of the perspectives. And then also there are these letters that are interspersed throughout, kind of like the other Alice Feeney book with the diary entries. We're getting these letters that the wife has written to the husband on each wedding anniversary that they have had leading up to this current anniversary. So you're getting to kind of read what got them to this point. It was so cool. I love it when these mysteries and these thrillers are layered like that, to where we feel like we've got a book within a book within a book. We're reading all these different stories, and at the end, boom, it all comes together, and it is so satisfying. The only reason, well, actually I have 2 reasons why this is not 5 stars, because right up until the end, I really thought it was gonna be 5 stars for me. And again, this is still the best book I read this month. I highly recommend this one and the other Alice Feeney. But number 1, I loved the plot twists at the end. We were like, boom, 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 and I was loving it, but none of the twists scratched that itch that I had in the back of my brain that I really wanted. And I don't even have anything in mind for what I would have preferred the twist to be, but it didn't quite go exactly where I wanted it to go. It was like 95% satisfying. It didn't push me over the edge where it blew my mind or anything like that. And then also, I still even might have given it 5 stars at that point, but there was this really weird epilogue that I felt was super unnecessary. I'm just gonna leave it at that actually. I want you all to go read this because it is going to be the perfect late fall / winter thriller. I can definitely see this in some recommendation video or videos that I have coming up later this year. Alice Feeney definitely has herself a new fan because the second that I finished this book, I picked this one up. Like, I am obsessed. She kind of reminds me of a British Shari Lapena whose writing style is a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more layered. These are the thrillers that I want Shari Lapena to be writing because her ideas are awesome, but then she just kind of writes these one-dimensional stories. I'm so sorry. I do not know why I decided I was just gonna start roasting Shari, but Shari's books are a little bit more like, here's a great idea and we're just gonna go straight through the book. With these Alice Feeney books though, we're taking those similar ideas and those similar vibes, but we're adding in letters, we're adding in diary entries, and we're just throwing in these crazy twists that check out. Like, everything ends up making sense to where you pretty much could have seen things coming, but not in a predictable way. It's more like a, when you backtrack, it all makes sense now type of way. And that's just so satisfying to me. So I think I can go back and read 1 or 2 more Alice Feeney books that she has written. I don't think her backlist is super extensive, so I'm sure I'll be doing that next month. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.